for a milestone in Mexico as we go racing.
Mexico City E-Prix complete, Nick Cassidy with the race win, and now it's time to get deep into the analysis to understand how Nick Cassidy won that race. You're joining me here at the London Production HQ. We have all of the tools at our disposal to figure out how Nick Cassidy won this race. But first, let's talk to him.
What a drive and what a performance from 13th on the grid. Nick Cassidy will come across the line to take the checkered flag and win the Mexico City E-Prix.
Unbelievable, huge amounts of congratulations. That was a phenomenal drive.
Thanks so much, man. Yeah, I'm so happy with obviously that. I mean, with Citroen, what our first two races. I had a really good car also in qualifying, but I didn't really do a great job, but I knew that I had a good package. I kind of expected the race like really hard to pass, so to get my way with a win is pretty unbelievable.
Let's talk a little bit more about that, because this race I think didn't unfold in the way that anybody expected it to. I think us watching, you on track, talking a little bit about strategy, because it felt like that 6-minute attack mode use at that stage of the race could not have been better timed.
Yeah, it was really well timed. I was fortunate to have a good gap, that I slotted into. I was in a good position on energy. The car was very good before that. I was patient, similar to Sao Paulo, but I think that today we had a stronger package than Sao Paulo, so I could really have pace when I needed to and spread the field when I needed to.
In a race like today, tell me, how much of it comes down to you absolutely nailing yours and the team's strategy versus maybe other teams not executing their strategy as well as they could?
I don't know. I can guess, to win in Formula E, you need a lot of things to fall into place. And today they did pretty perfectly. So, yeah, I was obviously very happy with how it kind of went. It's a very unusual strategy for me, I would say. I wouldn't normally spend a lot of energy like that at an energy sensitive track where, to be honest, into turn 9 you could probably pass me quite easily. So yeah, I did take some risks today on strategy and it really worked out.
It definitely did work out, and I want to leave you with an amazing stat. I think you're going to like this one.
Yeah?
Almost 15% of the races that you've raced in, you've won in Formula E. You have over 14.8% win ratio. That's unbelievably good work. And considering you're doing that in sometimes half as many races as a lot of other people on the grid.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's pretty cool. But let's keep trying to get more right. I mean, the last run of races has been really good. Obviously, I'm going to have a tough one soon. That's the nature of the sport. But for now, I'll just keep doing my best and keep pushing.
It's great to see. Enjoy the celebrations. Congratulations again, and we'll see you in Miami.
Cheers, man. Yeah, let's catch up soon. Thanks, Saunders.
Albie, we need to get into this one because I don't think either of us were anticipating how chaotic that race ended up being.
No, after the safety car, it just got crazy, didn't it?
It really, really did. We're here to understand how Nick Cassidy won that race though, because again, it was another phenomenal drive from Nick Cassidy. You've got the software. Tell us, first of all, what we're looking at before we get into how Nick Cassidy won this race.
Okay, so this is the race trace, which is essentially a graphical representation of the gaps between all the drivers as they go from the start of the race to the end of the race. When you see the traces sort of go down, it just means the overall pace of the race is coming down. And when you see the traces come back up, it's just the cars they're pushing on a bit and the cars are getting faster again. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
Okay, so we've got every driver their own line on the screen. Let's look at Nick Cassidy. Talk me through the race. Where was it won?
Okay, so really the race is sort of split into 3 parts. You've got everything that happened before the safety car period itself, and then everything that happened afterwards, right? So in the first part of the race, everything was relatively benign. There was a little bit of overtaking with some attack modes, but for Nick, he was doing Nick Cassidy things, just keeping his nose clean, saving energy. I think he saved about 2 to 3% more than everyone else, just sort of hanging out in that mid-pack. Always a bit dangerous, but he, as we saw in Sao Paulo as well, he just does that super well. So during the safety car, so what we ended up having was adding 2 laps to the race. It was very, very close to getting to 3 laps. So actually all the cars saved a lot of energy through that point. So it was clear towards the end of the race, they were always gonna push on a little bit more and just used a little bit more energy towards the end. So let's just look at the last part of the race, shall we?
Okay. So first of all, we can see where the safety car was here, right? That
Yeah.
big drop of pace, all the lines go down. And then we
Exactly.
get back racing again. Nick Cassidy at this point still hasn't used attack mode. He's got
No.
all of it remaining.
Yeah. So actually, it was pretty close to as well behaved as you would like to think that racing drivers can be out of the safety car. Actually, I thought there would be a lot more argy-bargy
Sure.
at that point. But what did happen on lap 24 was those sort of four cars, Ticktum, DaCosta, Gunter, and Cassidy all sort of going into turn 4. A lot of contact there. And actually, what happened was that just opened up the field a little bit. And as you can see here, it just allowed Nick to sort of come in. He's got a gap behind him, and it just opens up a little bit behind there, and he's able to take his first attack mode. Crucial here was that he took a 6-minute attack rather than everyone else's 4 minutes. So that just allowed him to get all the way to the front of the field and then control the race from there. And the timing of it, how efficient he was in overtaking, really masterclass. The team did a good job calling that, and Nick did a good job executing to get to the front of the race.
So that point there, we see the gap, you know, like you said, that he hasn't got that pressure pushing him behind, forcing him to make a mistake.
Exactly.
Attack mode is relatively, yes, he might lose a position, but he
Yeah.
does it without too much loss.
Correct.
Gets that position back immediately
Absolutely.
and pushes on. So then let's get to the point where everybody else starts taking their attack modes. He has a bit more left, right? Still more energy to burn.
Exactly. So the difference here is, for example, like Edo Mortara took a 4-minute attack, so he actually takes it on the next lap, and Nick still is able to not only get in behind Mortara, but actually get in front, and crucially stay in front because he had that extra 2 minutes of attack. So towards the end of the race, what you see is he actually pushes the gap to Mortara a little bit more on lap 32 to make sure that when he takes his final attack mode, that he can then still stay out in front, which was critical because at that point, Edo, with a 4-minute attack mode remaining, realistically was sitting in a better position, let's say, from a strategy point of view. But as you can see at the end of the race, Cassidy was able to drive a wide car, position it in the right places. Looked like potentially Edo might have been a little bit down on energy because he didn't quite save as much. And so even with attack mode at the end of the race, he wasn't able to get past Cassidy. And that is how Nick won the race.
It's there on the screen.
Absolutely.
You see his race unfold, but there's something a little extra when it comes to Nick Cassidy.
There's a bit of magic there, isn't there?
It is, and that is the perfect word because, you know, looking at the stats, 4 of the last 6 races he's been on the podium have come from outside of the top 10.
Yep.
If we'd had this conversation before Mexico race, we'd say no chance he's doing it from out there. But he keeps doing it again and again. So it's fair to say that it doesn't necessarily mean that if you put any other driver in the same car, the same positions, with the same amount of attack mode at the same time, the results would be the same. And that's where his racecraft comes in.
No, and his racecraft as well. You have to remember, he's in a different car than he was last year. Different systems, different engine, different everything, different team. And the racecraft, the magic is still there.
We understand how Nick Cassidy got the win.
Yeah.
But why wasn't it Edo's?
You're sitting in the pound seats at the end of the race. You know, Nick had his only 2-minute attack mode remaining. Edo had 4 minutes. So he had almost a lap and a half, almost 2 laps of opportunity to overtake. Realistically, with the traction benefit of all-wheel drive, he should have been able to get that done. But potentially a little bit low on energy. I think he was maybe 1 to 2% down, and that just actually made a difference. And I think, honestly, I think Nick drove a really good defensive race.
So to flip things on their head, we understand now how Nick Cassidy won the race. I would like to now see how someone in prime position, I'm not saying pole position, because Buemi was pole position, but into the first corner, it was Taylor Barnard that was leading the pack. What changed?
The biggest thing that happened with Taylor is, if you look at on lap 30 here, he actually goes for attack and misses the loops crucially. He had a really good gap behind him because Evans wasn't really doing anything at this point. So he had a good enough gap behind him to take the attack mode. And if he had gotten it on this lap, he realistically, he would have been on the podium at the minimum. Whether he wins the race or not, difficult to say, but definitely I feel like he would have been on the podium. He then has to take it the next lap. He's lucky that at the same time, he doesn't lose any positions there because Evans also goes for the attack mode at the same time. But that was a missed opportunity. And again, it's going to be something that Taylor's going to be kicking himself for later.
Especially when that win is still elusive. He's still hunting that first win in Formula E.
Absolutely.
We've got an understanding of what happened in the race, and we've got a couple of fan questions, actually.
Perfect.
They want to have your expert analysis on their
let's go for
questions. So, at Kimmy MTZ17 said, how much does the altitude in Mexico affect things performance-wise? Now, for those that don't know, that's 2,200 meters above sea level. It's effectively racing in a ski resort. That must have some impact.
Yeah, so for me, it's twofold. There's a car performance aspect and there's a human performance aspect. So from the car point of view, the air density is going to reduce. So that means you got a little bit less downforce. You've got a little bit less cooling in the radiators. You've got a little fewer air molecules in the tires. But realistically, because all of those things are relatively similar across all the cars in the grid, it kind of all equals out. So from a competitive point of view, everyone's kind of working with the same thing. The second part for me is actually more critical, is actually the human performance side. So if you've ever traveled out to Mexico City, it's really difficult getting a good night's sleep. The teams that are taking care of their people a little bit better in terms of making sure they get the right amount of rest, fluids and things like that, there's a little bit of advantage to be had.
One more question. We've got SB10FE said, what can teams do to manage battery temperatures?
When you take the attack mode, sort of when you drive the battery really hard, when you do that during the race matters because the battery is less efficient right towards the end. So that last sort of 20% of battery energy, if you push the battery really hard there, you're gonna have way more temperature increase. Timing when you do those things during the race will have an effect. And then the other one really, it's how much energy you put into the car. So whenever you're doing a lot of braking, doing a lot of accelerating, you're taking a lot of temperature out of the battery. So there are times where if you know it's going to be a temperature limited race, you just don't use all the energy. You just literally, you leave some on the table because getting to the end of the race with the battery still in a good temperature is actually more important than using up all of the energy.
Fascinating stuff as always. Thank you very much, Albie.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for the questions that came in. Feel free to get more questions in the comments. Let us know if you like this video, this sort of analysis. Drop the video a like, get in the comments, tell us what you want to see next. Make sure you're subscribed to the Formula E channel so you don't miss any content, and we'll see you again in Miami.